Baruch haba, welcome everyone to a special edition of All Parsha on Parshas Korach, the Ben La'ashri on Parshas Korach, the tzaddik of Ranana, Rabbi Yitzchak HaKohen Huberman, who writes that he decided that he will pray every day, bli neder, for anyone who learns the Sefer and says over the Torah in his name, to be saved from any tzara, if they need a Yeshua, whether in this world or the world to come. But certainly, let us delve into the words of Torah that have their own great benefits. Okay, so I'd like to share with you 7 amazing offerings of the Ben La'ashri on Parshas Korach. We begin with the pasuk Vayikach Korach ben Yitzhar. And Rashi says, what was Korach's problem? He was jealous of the appointment of Elitzaphan ben Uziel. After all, Kahas had 4 sons. The oldest was Amram, so Amram's sons got a lot of Gedula, Moshe and Aaron. But Korach was Korach ben Yitzhar. Yitzhar was the second son of Kahas. Korach should have gotten the Nasios. Instead, it went to Elitzaphan, the son of the 4th son of Kahas. So the Mefarshim will ask, most notably the Ramban, why is Korach waking up now? Elitzaphan was appointed way back when. Says the Ben La'ashri, based on the Arizal, in the Shar HaPsukim, that the Arizal says L'asad Lavoi, the Levium will be elevated to a madrega even greater than the madrega of the Kohanim. Now, we know, had it not been for the Chet HaMeraglim, Klal Yisrael would have gone straight into Eretz Yisrael. And Moshe Rabbeinu would have been Mashiach, and it would have brought the Tikkun HaKlali, and the Tikkun HaAchroin, and the Levium would have been elevated immediately to greater than Kohanim. So Korach said, I'll wait. It's only a few days until anyway I'm a Levi and I will very soon be greater than the Kohanim. So Korach was able to hold himself back. But then after the Chet HaMeraglim, and it was nigzar on them 40 years in the Midbar, Korach cannot restrain himself. He could not wait for the day that his Gedula would expand. Okay, we move on to offering number 2. Vayikach Korach. Korach, Rashi says, took himself L'tzad Echad. Now, in the holy book Ben Ish Chai, the Ben Ish Chai says if you take the letters Korach and you take the letters after Korach, which are Reish, Shin, Tes, Reish after Kuf, Shin after Reish, Tes after Ches, you get the letters Reshet, Korach, you unscramble them and you get Charat, Sheker. And the Ben Ish Chai explains the significance of Charat, Sheker. However, the Ben La'ashri says, I'll take my opinion at this. What is the significance of the letters Charat Sheker? Namely, the Gemara says in Baba Basra, Daf Ayin Daled Amud Aleph, that Rabbi Bar Bar Chana heard that they cried out, that Rabbi Bar Chana put his ear to the ground, to the Blue Korach, and he heard they were saying, Moshe v'sayrasei emes v'hein badoim. Moshe is true, the Torah is true, and they are phonies. Question, asked the Ben La'ashri, so then they're doing tshuva. If they're doing tshuva, why can't they leave Gehenna? Says the Ben La'ashri, you could say it's because Vehein Bada'in, you know what Vehein Bada'in means? We're liars. Even in what we're saying, that Moshe emes v'sayrasei emes, we don't really mean it. It's only misafa ulachutz because they're pressuring us. But it's charat sheker. Even their charata in the end, even their regret is false, is not genuine. We move on to the 3rd offering. Vayikach Korach. Korach, Rashi says, was a very wise man. He was pikeach. He was from the carriers of the Arain. Usually, the Bnei Kahas were very few because the Arain would kill them, because they would not warrant and merit holding the Arain. Yet Korach was able to continue carrying the Aron because he was very great, and Korach saw himself as very great, and that is what ennobled him to fight against Moshe Rabbeinu. However, the Ben La'ashri explains this in the context of the Medrash Pliya. The Medrash Pliya asks, what did Korach see to argue on Moshe Rabbeinu? He saw the Para Aduma. What exactly is the meaning that he saw the Para Aduma? Says the Ben La'ashri, we could explain as follows. Korach pikeach haya milashon pikeach ivrim. He saw, he was able to be a seer, C-S-E-E-R. He saw through prophecy. Says the Ben La'ashri, if I would not have fear, I would say that In fact, what ennobled Korach to attack and to instigate against Moshe Rabbeinu is he perceived the reason for the Parah Aduma. But wait a second, even Moshe Rabbeinu, even Shlomo Melech didn't understand the reason for the Parah. Well, that's because Shlomo, he was only a Chacham, he could not understand it. However, we know that Moshe Rabbeinu did understand the reason for the Parah, like the Medrash tells us in Bamidbar Rabbah, Parsha Yotes Ois Vav, L'cha ani megala tam para, ula'acherim, but to everyone else it's a chukah. As Shlomo Melech says, Amarti echkama, v'hi rechoika mimeni. I will not reveal it to anyone but Moshe. However, the Gemara in Bava Basra says on Daf Yud Beis, Chacham adaf mi navi. A wise man is greater than a navi. And therefore, Korach was a pikeach, and if Moshe knew the reason for the Parah, then Korach, who was a Chacham, he for sure knew the reason for the Parah. In fact, says the Ben La'ashri, I said this based on these Divrei Chazal, and I found in the Yismach Moshe that he said this on his own without any raya at all. So Korach, now the reason why Korach understood it is he came from the same spiritual source as Moshe, namely Hevel. As the Arizal writes, Hevel and Korach is Gematria Moshe. And because he was so close to the Sharash HaNeshama of Moshe, he perceived the reason of the Parah. But Shlomo did not, because he was distant from Moshe. This is the deeper meaning of what Shlomo HaMelech says. Amarta achkama. I thought I would figure out the reason for the Parah through wisdom. V'hi rechoika mimeni. But my Sharash HaNeshama is too far away from Korach. This is the Perish HaPashid in the Medrash Pliya. Ma ra Korach lachlek al Moshe. And that is, he saw the reason of the Parah Aduma. However, through his kina and his machlekes, his shoresh of Hevel left him, and he became rooted in Kayin, and that was the beginning of his downfall. Okay, says the Ben Lashri in the fourth offering, Vayikach. The word Vayikach im HaKoilel is Gematria Heskem. That in the end Moshe agreed with Korach. Korach ben is Gematria b'Mashiach. When did Moshe agree to Korach? When Mashiach comes. What is the meaning of this? Says the Ben La'ashri. Rashi tells us that Korach's eye led him astray. He saw Shmuel would come from him, and who anointed David, the root of Mashiach. Now, Korach wanted to be the Kohen Gadol. How could he be the Kohen Gadol? There already is a Kohen Gadol. Well, Korach said, Efsher, Lebeiz Malachim, Lehishtamesh B'Keser Echad. 2 kings could use 1 crown. But Moshe said no. Moshe says, only 1 king. Korach said, what do you mean? Why can't 2 kings? So Moshe said, didn't Hashem make the Levana small? The Miyad HaLevana indicates there could only be 1 king. That's why there can't be 2 great luminaries. Hashem made the moon small because there can only be 1 king. But Korach said, La'asid Lavai, God is going to make the moon like the size of the sun. So too, there could be 2 Kohanim Gedolim. Moshe said, that's very nice, but we're not in the La'asid Lavai. Now we are in the current reality, and in the current reality, there could only be 1 king. This is Korach's argument. Ki kol ha'eda kulam kadoshim. We are already in the La'asid Lavai, and we could all be leaders. And therefore, Moshe says, no, you made a mistake, Korach. Right now, we're in the Galos. This is what Moshe means. Boiker v'yoida Hashem es asher lai. Rashi explains, now it's night. It's a time of shichrus. We cannot engage in this avodah. The deeper meaning is, we are in the Galos. Galos is deemed drunkenness, as it says in Yeshaya, Parak Nun Aleph, Pasuk Chaf Aleph, Shikares v'loi miyayin. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, Boiker, in the morning when the Geula comes, I'm maskim to you. Heskem, I agree to you. In the Boiker, in the morning, I'm maskim that you're right. That's why Tzaddik Hatamra Yifrach. In the end, in the Soifei Toivos, Korach is a Tzaddik. But Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, right now, I don't agree to you. So Vayikach is Gematria Heskem. Korach ben is Gematria b'Mashiach. When Mashiach comes, Moshe concedes to the argument of Korach. V'oin ben Pelas, offering number 5. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says, Kuf Tesam Beis, that Oin ben Pelas' wife saved him when she uncovered her hair. Why did she dafka do that? Let's say they can't enter the house. Why can't they call him, hey, Oin, yeah, we can't come near, your wife's not clad, but come join us. Says the Ben Lashri brilliantly, the Gemara says in Yuma, Daf Mem Zayin, Kimchis had 7 boys, and they all served B'Kahuna Gedayla. They all served B'Kahuna Gedayla. The Chachamim said, with what was Kimchis Zoiche? And the Gemara says that the beams of her home never saw the hair of her head. So from here we see that the zechus for one to be zoicha to kohanim gedolim is for a woman to be extra sanua in her home. But we see conversely that if somebody's hairs are uncovered, their children will not be zoicha to kohanim gedolim. So all the 250 men thought they would be kohanim gedolim. Like Rashi says, you guys all want kohanim gedolah, but when they saw her that his wife's hair was uncovered, they realized, no kahuna gadol is going to come out of this guy, not from this home, and therefore they ran away. Offering number 6, Vayikach Korach. The Ben Lashri has a very beautiful drush. Rashi says Korach was a pikeach. What did he see to do the shtus? Einoi hatasa, his eye led him astray. Says the Ben Lashri, we could say al derech tzachos, in a light manner. The gematria of Einoi is mammon, because he had a lot of money. Like Chazal say about the wealth of Korach, it was oisher shamor lebalav l'ra'asai, and that's because he didn't have anyone to give tzedakah to. Because when someone has a lot of money, then the remedy is, the way to keep on the straight and the narrow is to be a big baal tzedakah. But in the midbar, they were all oichlei haman, and there was no one to give tzedakah, and therefore his money led him astray. Okay, and finally, the final offering of Ben La'ashri today, for Shabbos, Parshas Korach, Beis Tammuz. Shabbos is Gimel Tammuz, says the holy Ben La'ashri. The Medrash Pliya says, what did Korach see to argue on Moshe? He saw the para aduma. Says, we could explain very simply based on Rashi. When Korach said, Madua tisnasu al kahal Hashem, why do you elevate yourself on the congregation of Hashem? So Rashi says, Korach says to Moshe, you weren't the only one who heard God on Har Sinai say, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. We all heard the Rebbeinu Shalom say, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Rashi is referring to something specific. Why does Korach need to tell Moshe, you weren't the only one who heard Hashem say, Anochi Hashem Elokecha? Moshe never made that claim. No, he did. Because after the Ched HaEgal, Moshe Rabbeinu defended Klal Yisrael. Maybe the reason Klal Yisrael made the Egal is because they heard you say to me, Rebbeinu Shalom on Har Sinai, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, lo yeh lecha, you commanded me not to worship idols. You never commanded them. So Moshe defended the people by saying the people thought only I'm not allowed to worship idols, only I'm not allowed to make avodah zarah. They can. So Korach said, Moshe, who do you think you are? You think God only spoke to you and told you to not to worship idols? So Moshe says, no, I was only saying that to defend the Jewish people. Korach said, I have a better defense. The better defense is, the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, Daf Daled Amud Beis, Klal Yisrael never would have come to such a Maisa. Hashem allowed them to do it to teach that even a rabbim could do tshuva. Says Korach, I'll prove to you that I'm right, that Klal Yisrael were somewhat guilty for serving the Egel. Not like you, Moshe Rabbeinu, that Klal Yisrael thought that Moshe was the only one who was commanded not to worship idols. Well, I'll prove to you Klal Yisrael are guilty. The Paraduma, like with Moshe darshans, that the reason for the Paraduma is a kapara for the Egel. So clearly the Jewish people did not have your excuse, Moshe Rabbeinu, that they thought that you were the only one commanded not to worship idols. Because if that's really what the Jewish people thought, then that's a good rationale, and they would not need the Paraduma to cleanse them from the Chedo Egel. So when Korach saw the Paraduma, that made him think that Klal Yisrael were certainly guilty of the Ched HaEgel, and that's why they needed a kapara through the Paraduma, and that proved to Korach that since the reason for the Paraduma is to be mechaper for the Ched HaEgel, then Moshe, you were certainly not the only one who heard on Har Sinai, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. But Korach's mistake was that even after the reason of Rav Moshe Hadarshan, the Para Aduma's true and essential reason was not revealed. It's not essentially, it's not fundamentally to Mechaper for the Chet HaEgel, but there's a much deeper reason. But when Korach saw the Para Aduma, that demonstrated to him that Klal Yisrael, in fact, understood on Har Sinai that the Rebbeinu Shalom was not only speaking to Moshe Rabbeinu. So here we have 7 beautiful offerings of the Ben La'ashri. I want to wish everyone a wonderful Shabbos. Bracha v'hatzlacha. Until next time, thank you so much.